Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Britballin. I am your host, Mike McGugan. I'm joined by my lovely little angel of the north, Adam Wilkin. How are we doing?
I'm good, mate. How's things?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very, very good. How's everything on your end?
Yeah, it's good, mate. Finally back to things. Kids back at school and things, so we're getting there.
Getting there.
Nearly there. We're nearly there.
Nearly there. I think we've got a bit of a good show on tonight, haven't we, in terms of the calibre of our guests, and that's just the people we're partnered with.
That's true, mate. That's true. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Well, I suppose we've got one lovely guest, and then we've got Pete, who's joined us again. How are we doing, Pete? Nice to have you back on the show.
Hey guys, it's day 852 in my COVID cupboard. It's a month back at work. I thank God for Britballin because I need to talk football. I'm going nuts here. I need to talk some football.
Keeping you sane.
Well, do you know what? It's been fantastic. Our partnership so far has been absolutely excellent. We've had some awesome guests. You guys are knocking out the park. So I thought I'd bring a friend today. I brought a friend. Okay. Do you want to bring him in?
Oh, your friend? Yeah, go on, your friend. Yeah, go on. There you go. Hi. How you doing, Simon? You okay?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining us. A lot of back and forth on social media, but pleasure to finally have you on the show. I think Pete needed some support. I think he wanted to balance the power shift because it's been 2-on-1 for a little bit. So I think he wanted to have somebody else on his team.
And a bit more of a southern accent, maybe.
Yeah, we did.
That's what it was, yeah.
That's it. Literally, if you take where you're from, where Pete's from, sorry, that way, and then me and Adam are just in the middle. So that's it. We've got everything in now.
I've never thought of myself from the Midlands before.
The Midlands don't exist.
That's BAFCA Midlands.
It is the BAFCA Midlands.
Which ideally could be the north. But unfortunately, whilst it's an absolute pleasure to have you two lovely chaps on the show, so we're partnering again with BAFCA on this. Well, you just join us in being the ones that people aren't here to see us. They're actually here to see our guests. Unfortunately, welcome to the club. We've had it for nearly 6 months now, so you just have to join us in being the afterthought in terms of why people join in. So we're pleased to be joined by Coach Bill Curry. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm right in saying Coach, SEC Coach of the Year, Alabama head coach, 2-time Super Bowl winner. Is there anything that I forgot, Coach?
Nothing worth mentioning. You got the highlights. That's for sure.
You got the highlights on the CV. Yeah, so I'm assuming they're the ones that are sticking out to you. So, I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind in terms of your journey into American football and what you've achieved in your time. But dare I say, do you want to just quickly, for anyone who doesn't know, I've been Wikipedia and I know you from Google and I've obviously seen your work, so I'm up to speed. But do you want to give the guys who are potentially watching your brief history into how you got into the sport and your journey to where you are today?
My journey into the sport was serendipitous, surprising, not what one would expect. I was a short, chubby 12-year-old in College Park, Georgia, and I had 2 thoughts in mind, and 2 only. Number 1 was to marry Carolyn Newton, who would not speak to me. We were in the classroom together. And number 2 was to pitch for the New York Yankees. I didn't think about anything else. I certainly did not aspire to play in it. There was no such thing as Super Bowls at that time. There were NFL championships, etc., national football championships in college. But I wasn't interested. Carolyn Newton was not interested in me. However, I am very persistent, and I will go ahead and let you in on the secret that Carolyn and I have been married now for 58 years. So persistence does pay off in some areas, and this one was one of them. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. The New York Yankee thing didn't quite work out so well. Only one thing kept me out of the majors in baseball, and that was talent. So I had to go another direction. I ended up on this ridiculous field that was marked off like a grid. in the 100-degree weather in August in College Park, Georgia, as I have already announced. And I was told, go over there with the B team. But we only had 11 new players because it was a small program. The assistant coach took us over there. This is after we had run so many laps, we were all regurgitating and dying, we thought, forced to wear these ridiculous pads on our little chubby bodies and these helmets. No water whatsoever. We weren't allowed to even think about water. And I was already deciding that I was going to do what I usually did when things got tough at that age, and that is to quit. I was going to turn in my pads and go home. But I had a problem with the quitting thing, you see, because my father lived at our house. And Major W.A. Curry dictated you didn't quit anything at his house. He said, now, I didn't make you go out for football. You decided to go out there, but you're not going to let your teammates down and walk away. You're not going to do it. You're going to stay out there and finish what you started. One of his primary principles in life, and of course, that ended up being priceless for me because I was forced to go through the hard times, and football is mostly hard times, especially in the beginning. So they began to assign positions, and naturally the best athletes got the best positions. So Tommy could throw the football, he got to be the quarterback. And Ronald could run fast, so he got to be the halfback. And after, again, I mentioned we only had 11 new players. After 10 players had been placed in all the good positions, there was only one position left, and it was the one position that nobody wanted to play. And the only player left was a future New York Yankee pitcher. I'm standing over there picking my nose. I didn't care what they did with me. I was dying. And the coach said this brilliant thing after he'd already filled 10 positions. We only had one to go. He said, well, Bill, I guess you're going to be the center. I can't tell you on a family radio or television hookup what I thought. I can't use the words. But it was something like, no kidding, Shaddix. There's only one position left. So I trudge over to the center position. And he said another brilliant thing. Well, Bill, I guess you're going to have to learn to hike that ball. No kidding, Shaddix. Let's talk about this thing. Now, we've got a oblate spheroid here, pumped up to 13 pounds per square inch, very hard, and you want me to put it on the ground and pull it up between my legs as hard as I can, and Tommy Fields is going to put his hands where? Coach, what if he moves his hands early? This is a complex matrix we're thinking about here. Could we discuss this before we get into? No, just hike the ball, son. Worst possible thing that could happen to short, fat, lazy Bill Curry, right? Being stuck at offensive center in a blazing football environment with no water, no nothing, no sympathy, no empathy, no nothing. Right? Wrong. A few years later at Georgia Tech, I learned to hike that ball to Billy Lothridge. And these names will not be familiar in your country, but Billy Lothridge was the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. In the Senior Bowl, after my senior year at Georgia Tech, I hiked that ball to Joe Willie Namath. You may know that name.
Yeah.
And in subsequent years, I hiked that ball to Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, Bob Greasy, Darryl LaMonica, Francis Tarkington, and all of the greatest quarterbacks that had ever played in the National Football League, all Hall of Famers, all pros, all Super Bowl winners that I just mentioned. And the way football turned out for me, as it does for so many, the one thing that appeared to be the worst thing that could have happened for me was the only way. The position of center is the only position in all of sport that would have allowed short, fat, lazy Bill Curry to earn a spot in a huddle and get a chance to play this wonderful game for 20 years. So what I did is I hiked that ball for 20 years, and I protected the greatest players of all time up until that time. And so my job, I learned later, my job was to hike the ball and be run over slowly. And if you can do that, then you can play center. But that is a literal, that is the truth. That is a fact of the way I started my football career. It was most unpleasant. But what I learned is that if you just stick with whatever you're given and do the very best you can, especially if you've got an authority figure like my dad who wouldn't let me quit, then it might turn out to be something better than you think. And then after that was a very long coaching career that all came because of the fact that I had played. So that's a long-winded way of explaining how I began this trek that I'm still on. I'm still involved in football and young people.
I don't think I've ever heard a better explanation of somebody explain how they got into football. I can be honest, in all my years of hearing people, I ask that question every week, Bill. How did you get into football? And that I can firmly say was my favourite answer. So maybe because I was also the short, fat, chubby kid who wanted to play but couldn't play anywhere else. But other than that, Adam, I think you had a question, mate.
Yeah. We want to go more in depth on like your coaching side of things. So obviously you've coached at many different places, but we wanted to know like what's your coaching philosophy as it is? Like, do you have like a philosophy that you stick by everywhere you go? What would you put that down as?
If I really should be famous for something, I've been famous for several things, and they're not all good, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. Or infamous is a better word, maybe. But I've gotten a lot of attention for on-the-field performances or coaching or working for ESPN or public speaking and all those kinds of things. But the thing I think that deserves attention that happened to me, it was another serendipitous experience. Now, that's the best way I can explain it. It was like a God thing, because at every turn, when I walked into a program, I walked into a great football coach. So I have this compilation of what Bill Badgett, my high school coach, each one of them left something priceless with me. And I tried to share it with my thousands of players through the years. And I'm grateful for every single one of them. And I'm shocked at now, age 78, I hear from them almost every day. And they actually remember some of the stuff that we taught. But I'll run through the basics of the greatest coaches. Bill Badgett was my high school. Of course, my dad's the principle, you don't let your teammates down. That's the best one of all. The one that Major W.A. Curry taught me. My father was an infantry officer, hand-to-hand combat instructor for World War II. And that's where he got his military training, and you didn't let your teammate down. And so we start with that. If you're going to be a part of our team, you may or may not be a great player, but if you're going to be a part of it, you're going to always live by that principle. No matter how tired you get, no matter how sick you get, no matter how much you hate the coach, no matter how much you think that we ought to be doing things differently, you've got a chance to come and express yourself, but don't you dare let your teammate down, period. That's where we start. Coach Bill Badgett, my high school coach, used to tell us every single day, men, football is just life marked off in 100 yards in 10-yard increments. You're going to get knocked down again and again and again. You got two choices. You can lie there and wallow in self-pity, or you can get your butt up off the ground and get back in the huddle and do your job again and again and again. That's your choice. You choose. Two pains in life. The pain of discipline, the pain of regret. You choose. And when you choose well, often enough, you become somebody that we can count on. And then we want you on our team, and you'll have a place. And then when our team breaks up, as they always do eventually, you'll have a place in our hearts for the rest of our lives. I still meet with my high school teammates. We still go to lunch together. My guy that used to pull my jersey over contacted me, emailed me last week. You want to resume our lunches after this COVID thing? We're both almost 80 years old. They'll become the best friends you ever had in your life if you both learn how to lay it on the line. So that's what Coach Badgett taught us. Then I went to Georgia Tech. My high school counselor called me in my junior year and said, Bill, I understand you're considering Georgia Tech, which was a great football power and one of the toughest academic schools in the world. And I said, yes, ma'am, Miss Crow, I'm considering Georgia Tech. She said, don't. I said, don't what? She said, don't consider Georgia Tech. I said, why? She said, Bill, you're not a stupid boy, but you have frolicked all the way through high school. You don't have a chance at Georgia Tech. You wouldn't survive 2 semesters. They take calculus and physics. They got national merit scholars in virtually every chair. You're not a Georgia Tech student. You have frolicked too much. So I thanked her. I went down to the library and I looked up the word frolic. She was right. But what she didn't know is that Carolyn Newton was going to be at Agnes Scott College, which is only 8 miles from the Georgia Tech campus. So guess what? I went to Georgia Tech against all the advice. And there was a guy there named Bobby Dodd, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Yes, he was great as a football coach, but he was even greater as an academic coach because he had guys like me, knuckleheads, that had frolicked in high school. He said, now, men, a lot of teams were running players off at that time. They'd get you there, and if you didn't measure up just right, they'd just run you off. They'd practice you so hard you'd go home. I knew I wasn't going to do that because I had to face my dad. But he also said this, we're not going to run you off. If you're not a good football player, that's not your fault. That's my fault because I invited you here. You're going to go to every single class because you're going to graduate from Georgia Tech. I don't care what other people have told you. You can do the work if you'll sit on the first row, if you'll take notes, if you'll pay attention, if you'll make that professor know that you care about her class or his class. And I thought he was kidding about that. He was such a nice man. And I thought my chemistry class met at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I decided I wouldn't go. And nobody would care, right? Wrong. The next day, my name was on the bulletin board. Bill Curry, report to the football field, 5:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in your running gear. They ran me up and down those football stands till I could not stand up. And you know what I decided? About the 50th time I was gagging and sobbing, I decided that chemistry at 8 o'clock in the morning was a wonderful thing. That actually happened. And that's a cute little story. But here's what matters. I never cut another class. I graduated from one of the toughest schools in the world. And sure enough, I didn't belong there. But I fought my way through because my football coach loved me too much to allow me to self-destruct when I could not see my own potential. So that's a basic part of the fabric of every program that I was ever expected to run. Then in the NFL, I walk in and I could talk about Vince Lombardi for hours. I will not. Your religion, your family, the Green Bay Packers, those will be your priorities in that order. You'll think of nothing else while you're here. Your religion, your family, the Green Bay Packers. And then we thought when we got on the practice field, he got confused about the order of the priorities. So I went to Bart Starr, our great quarterback, and I said, you know, I don't much like the way Coach Lombardi does things. And Bart became one of the best friends I ever had in my life. He was our quarterback. And he said, Bill, do not be judgmental. Another great lesson for a great team. The Packers only won 5 world championships in 7 years. Nobody will ever do that again. Not anybody, ever. And Bart was the quarterback for all of them. He said, Bill, don't you judge Coach Lombardi. He's very devout. He goes to mass. He's a Catholic. He goes to mass every single morning. I said, ain't nobody goes to church every morning. He said, oh, yes, he does. But you're going to realize when you've been working for this man about 3 weeks, this man needs to go to church every morning. He drove us so hard that when we got in a tight place, we didn't have to wonder what we were going to do. We didn't have to wonder if somebody was going to quit, because nobody was going to quit. And oh, by the way, his greatest attribute, for which he does not get credit, he would not tolerate racism. We had more African-American players than anybody in the league. It was 1965. A lot of teams had no African-American players, or two. And I know the dynamics are different in your country, and I don't know how the mix works out. But if you could play, you had a spot on that team, period. It didn't matter what you looked like. It didn't matter what your religion was. It didn't matter where you came from. You earned your spot. You had a spot on that team. What did that do? What did that do in Lombardi's locker room? What happened? Every man in the room knew he was respected. So we might have fist fights. We didn't like each other. I mean, Ray Nitschke broke my nose and broke my face mask the first day. So we might just duke it out on the practice field. But once we got in the locker room, we knew that each of us was respected. And when we got in a tight spot in the fourth quarter, the other team didn't have a chance. They just didn't know it. Nobody could beat us. Lombardi's magic was nobody is mistreated because of the way they look or where they come from or how they worship, ever. And if some place, and by golly, he took some teams to places that would not accept African Americans in the hotel, he wouldn't let any of his players stay in that hotel. They would just all walk out. Goodbye. You're not going to keep my one guy here? Okay, fine. We'll go down the street. He did it again and again. And after a while, guess what happened? Hotels integrated wherever the Packers went. Yeah. Isn't that interesting? He wasn't trying to make a social statement. He was trying to win football games by treating his men like men. I never forgot that. So we incorporated that. I know this is a complex answer. And then I played for a bunch of other great coaches, but Don Shula is the winningest coach in the history of the NFL. And I had the privilege of 3 years with him. He saved my career. And that's a long story we don't have time for. But he was with the Baltimore Colts when I played for him. And the one thing he told us is don't commit penalties. And I was his special teams captain. And I clipped a guy right in front of our bench in my very first game with the Baltimore Colts. And it was an 80-yard punt return. It was called back. Shula ran on the field, grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me and screamed profanity in my face. Well, in the NFL, if somebody comes on the field and crosses that white line, it's fair game. It doesn't matter who they are. I wasn't thinking, gee, this is the head coach. So I screamed the same inappropriate language right back in his face because I didn't think I had clipped the guy. So Tuesday, we're watching the films. The assistant coach said, Curry, is that a clip? I said, might be. He said, well, let me make a suggestion. The next time you decide to dog cuss the head coach on national television, you make damn sure it's not a clip. Do you understand? I said, oh, man. Shula's going to cut me after one game. So he called me in the equipment room, and I apologized. I said, I was out of line, coach. I shouldn't have done that. It won't happen again. I didn't really, you came across the white line, and I thought I didn't clip, so I screamed at you, and I was wrong. I'm sorry. You know what he did? You know what he said? He smiled. He said, I kind of like that. Just don't clip the guy. See, he wanted us to be fiery. He just didn't want us to commit penalties. He saved my career over and over because he gave me one chance after another. And that was incorporated into every program that I ran. So there's a sophisticated way of writing this all up. And I didn't mean to take that long, but those great coaches mean so much to me, and they will to my dying day.
I don't think anyone in this show is willing to stop you talking when you're flowing there, Coach. I'll be honest.
I've said that before.
Yeah, my jaw was just dropped. I was just like, yeah, you crack on. I could listen all night. I think Pete's got a question. I don't really care. As long as Coach is talking, I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm the same, Mike. We're all like kids at Christmas tonight.
Yeah.
So, Coach, I just wanted to know, and I think I kind of know the answer already from the way you're talking so far. Is just how much did you value sort of player interaction? Because we know some coaches don't like to interact quite as much. They like to be the professors and they like to game plan. But you strike me as a coach that wanted to work with the players and make them better people.
I wanted to spend every minute that I could with those guys in a college setting. And I prefer the college setting. I coached in the NFL for 4 years, and I didn't enjoy it because every year we had to cut guys, and that just about killed me. I'd lay awake all night long thinking about some poor guy that had just worked his guts out for 23 years, and I'm getting ready to send him home because he didn't quite make it. In college, I didn't have to do that. I told the guys the first meeting, I'm not going to cut you. You may cut yourself by not going to class. If I find out you're not going to class and we have a couple of sessions running up and down the west stands and you still decide to cut class, then I may send you home, but it won't be because of me. It'll be because of you. You will have decided your own fate. So I didn't have to cut people in college. I could keep them. I could watch the most unlikely guys like me earn those diplomas and know that they could go out and find a job the rest of their lives, and that we had a small part in that. That was my greatest joy. And that's what we built the foundation on. And in order to get that done, there were guys that I felt like I needed to spend specific time with regularly. There's one knucklehead. I made him put his desk right next to my secretary and bring his books every single day of the year until he graduated, because I promised his father. His father came to me sobbing. He said, I've lost him. He's just going crazy. He's doing all kind of dumb things. And he was, I'm not even going to get into it, but I watched him constantly. He hated every minute of it, but by golly, that son of a gun graduated. And so sometimes you have to do things like that. I wish I had done more of that.
Yeah. And Simon, I think you had a question, mate.
Yeah, Coach, you were known as a player as a sort of a special teamer, a wedge buster and a long snapper. Do you think the changes in the NFL rules are a positive thing to protect the players?
Oh, they're definitely positive to protect the players. They would have hurt me, because if you would run down and run into a wedge, of course, they're not allowed to have a wedge anymore. And if they did have a wedge, you wouldn't be allowed to run into them with your head, which is what we did, which is not very smart. And now I'm very serious. A lot of my friends are not alive anymore because we ran into people with our heads all those years. And I thought we were brave and tough and all that. And we were doing what it took to make the team. And another one of Coach Bobby Dodd's great strengths is he taught all of us, he made all of us learn to play all the special teams. And it's probably the only reason I made the Packers my first year. I was the last draft choice. They had 20 rounds in those days, and I was number 20. But the new rules are good because they're trying to take the head out of they're trying to make the players tackle with their shoulders, and that's great. They're trying to force coaches to make the players play with their heads up so that you can see and you don't smash into things with the top of your head. Catastrophic injuries most often happen when you make a collision with the top of your head. That's why you see these targeting fouls, and they will eject the player now. I think that's good. The fans go crazy. They think it's terrible because it's hard to be consistent. The consistency in officiating is what's really hard. Now, one guy will do that, and he gets away with it, and so the fans go crazy. And the next guy that does it gets thrown out of the game. That's a big problem right now, and the officials are going to have to deal with that. But I know that lives are being saved now, and a lot of my buddies that are not here anymore probably would be if they were playing in this generation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point there, and I suppose with your insight, you've probably got knowledge of the whole Super Bowl era, really, haven't you? So, I suppose my question would be, Coach, a combined question: how do you feel the game has changed over those years? And then similarly, what do you think's always been consistent?
Well, I played at about 235 or 240 as an offensive lineman. I was always the smallest lineman on the team, and that's okay. You could do that then because the way the defenses were structured. I'm not bragging and I'm not complaining. I was lucky to be there, and I'm happy that I was there. If you weighed 235 today, you'd be playing safety. Except I can't run fast enough to play safety. We got wide receivers that weigh 230 that run 4.4. I would be a water boy today. If I were in the drills, I would be a water boy or a manager or a coach, but I would not come close to being able to play in the NFL because I couldn't run fast enough to play the positions that my body weight now play. So size and speed. I don't know if I'd rank that number one or number two, because right behind that or right ahead of it is the incredible skill level. We used to line up very often with one tight end, two wide receivers, two running backs, a quarterback, and hand the ball off 50 times and throw it 20 times. And now there are receivers running all over the field all the time. You see it.
Yeah.
Kansas City might come out with 5 wide receivers. You can't run with any of them. They're all faster than lightning. The only team that did it this year was Tampa Bay, and they won the Super Bowl by matching up and playing incredible defense. Tampa Bay's defensive effort in the Green Bay Packer game and the Super Bowl this year were among the finest defensive plans and executions I have ever seen against a really sophisticated offense with Patrick Mahomes and all those water bugs he has over there that can just fly. So I'd say this: size and speed, skill level. Those are the two huge changes that have revolutionized our sport. And there are some people that are turned off by both of those things. I played at 235. Now a really good lineman might weigh 335, and he's faster than I was. Good grief! That's just intimidating, you know. And when I'm introduced to those guys, I get nervous, and I'll say something like, "Well, if I look like you, I'd still be playing," and they kind of snort, you know. Sure, yeah.
And then on the flip side, what would you say has always been consistent? What can you never get away from in the game? What do you think is true?
Fundamentals. The day I reported to the Green Bay Packers, the first practice I went to, they had two offensive linemen that were going to be Hall of Famers, Forrest Gregg and Jerry Kramer. and they had two more who probably should be Hall of Famers now, but are not, just because the Hall of Fame is not going to pick four guys off of one offensive line. And I was shocked. And these guys had already been playing in the NFL for 8 or 10 years. The first thing they worked on, I'll let you guess. What do you think they worked on?
Footwork.
Stance and footwork. Exactly. Stance and footwork. Stance and footwork. Stance and footwork. Lombardi, if you had one false step and some defensive end beat you through the B gap and got in the backfield on the Green Bay Packers sweep, I mean, it would be like Mount Vesuvius going on. That Italian volcano right behind the huddle just went flat out berserk through the clipboard. So there weren't any false steps. You didn't dare. And those guys worked on their stance. And so I pulled them aside and said, "What are you doing?" "We're doing fundamentals. If you don't do fundamentals, you can forget about playing in this league." So we worked on fundamentals for a long time, every day, playing for Vince Lombardi. With Don Shula, we worked on special teams for a long time, every day. And in both cases, we won a lot of football games strictly because of those things. So it's the basics that I just described that do not change. They will not change. The thing that is disturbing is to watch how poor the tackling is and how defensive backs will come up and duck their head and dive on the ground. Whereas if you kept your head up and tackle with your shoulders, you can still get a guy on the ground, even if he's one of those lightning guys from Kansas City. That's what Tampa did. They tackled those guys. They tackled them before they could get moving at that warp speed.
Yeah, it's true.
Coach, can I ask you a question about your first two head coaching gigs, which was Georgia Tech and then Alabama? And of course, the Alabama then is not quite the big, massive powerhouse program that it was. I mean, you basically went into two programs and had to turn them around. But I mean, big programs. How did you face those jobs when you went into them? I mean, there are a lot of expectation on you, perhaps.
Well, I love that. It was as if I were, I described that whole offensive center thing and how I got stuck in a position that I thought was not a good position. And I got pushed up into head coaching roles way before I was ready. The worst possible preparation to be a head coach in major college football is to play in the NFL a long time. Because here's what happens. I come in, I played for Lombardi and Shula and a bunch of other great coaches. I could knock your socks off with a bunch of other great coaches, assistants and others. For football historians who have read all about the greatest coaches of all time, I played for so many of them. Well, what that does, I played for 10 years in the NFL, so I come in and everybody says, "Oh man, he knows a lot of football." I thought I knew a lot of football. Wrong. I knew one thing. I'm serious now. I knew how to survive as an offensive center. And I knew how to play special teams. That is all I knew. That took every fiber of my being just to survive in the league. I didn't understand staff retention. I didn't understand recruiting. I didn't understand fundraising. I didn't understand facilities management. I did understand tutoring, and at Georgia Tech, I certainly did, because I majored in tutoring at Georgia Tech, the way Coach Dodd did things. So I did understand that part, but I had to learn on the run. And I wish that I had been smart enough to admit, at least to myself, that I didn't know what I was doing. But after a couple of years, everybody knew I didn't know what I was doing because we won 2 games in 2 years at Georgia Tech. So that part was very embarrassing, and we had to learn on the run. But thank God I had my legend alive and well. So I called Coach Dodd and I said, would you go to the games and critique me and then come in on Monday morning and tell me what you see and what I need to do better? He said, are you sure? I said, yes, sir. Yeah. That was ominous, but I said, yes, sir, I am. He walked in one day, had 44 mistakes I made in one game against North Carolina. And we went over them chapter and verse, and on 41 of them, there wasn't even any argument. I could defend myself on 3 of them. So thank goodness, I learned quickly because I had the master there to teach me. And we did begin to improve. And the other thing that we had to do was to go and recruit really, really high class, great young men. And we did that. We were fortunate enough to be able to do that. So, and same thing at Alabama, same kind of thing at Alabama. We tried to do it at Kentucky. We were not nearly as successful.
So, Coach, one thing that we want to ask, obviously, is go more in depth on like building a program. So, how did you build all of your programs? Like, what did you start off with? What was the first thing that you wanted to put in place to then move on? And what was like the last thing that you got in?
Well, each one was different. Each one had a different philosophy. And in each case, I seem to have a predilection for walking into situations where I'm following a legend. When I became the center at Georgia Tech, there had been a string of about 5 centers in a row that all made All-American. So I was expected to make All-American. When I took over as a head coach at Georgia Tech, I was following the great Bobby Dodd, Hall of Fame Bobby Dodd. So I was expected to match Coach Dodd. At Alabama, I was expected to be like Bear Bryant, of all things. And I wasn't capable of doing any of those. I wasn't as good as any of those guys. But I did realize what the deal was. I realized that people were going to look at me and say, there's no way he can measure up to that kind of excellence. So what we did is we took their level of excellence, their way of doing things, and we incorporated everything we could. We didn't just carte blanche take their program and say, okay, we're going to do the Bear Bryant program. No, we're going to take the things that Coach Bryant did that translate well into this generation, and we're going to preserve his legacy. We're going to honor his legacy. And by golly, we'll pray one day our teams will look like his teams. We'll hope and pray for that. Of course, Nick Saban has done that.
Yeah. What we're going to do now, Coach, if it's all right with you, is I'm going to jump into some of the questions from the comments. So I'll pull them up on the screen and I'll read them out. And if you want to give an answer, that'd be great. We've got from David Stretch. Did you notice any difference in the players when you went back into coaching at Georgia State than your time coaching there before? So was there a difference in players in that gap?
What a great question. Yeah. At Georgia State, because Georgia State had never had a football team, I'm not sure I'm capable of describing the dedication and the sense of wonder every day of being with those guys, because every single one of them came as an act of faith. It was almost a spiritual thing. I mean, we didn't act like it was church or anything. We always said we had the same priorities that Coach Lombardi had, except we put a very important, your religion, your education, your family, and our football team. And so we tried to emphasize those things, but those guys showed up. We didn't have a practice field. We didn't have a locker room. Actually, we didn't have a football at first. And if we were going to take a break during two-a-days, they had to lie down in the classroom halls on the floor and roll up their T-shirts with their hit. And I'm not going to say they never complained, but they almost never complained. They just kept trying and kept trying. We won more games than we lost the first year. Then we got hammered the next 2 years. And that was the end of my time. I was there 5 years and we played 3 years. And then other coaches have come since then and they've gradually gotten better and better and better. Now they have beautiful facilities, one of the most beautiful football fields I have ever seen, because the Braves vacated the Braves Stadium and Georgia State bought it, renovated it. It is 44,000. It's perfect. And they've got a beautiful stadium and they've got a wonderful program, and they've been to several bowls and they have won. And virtually every one of those guys that came to us graduated. My biggest goal for my guys was that diploma everywhere I coached. I wanted them to end up, if nothing else, get that diploma, because if you go play college football, and especially at a big school, and you end up without a degree, you've been cheated.
Definitely.
You've cheated yourself.
So we've got one more question come in from Marcus, if it's coming up on the screen. What is your top 3 things that you look for a player that was coming out of high school? So this is a player that you were going to be recruiting to college.
Is he honest? Can we rely on him? Does he tell the truth? That's one. That's one thing. That all of those combined, we can't deal with somebody that can't tell the truth. Number 2, does he take responsibility? When he drops the ball, does he say, "That's on me. I took my eyes off the ball. I'll catch the next one"? Or does he blame somebody else? Does he try to blame the quarterback or the protection? So basically what I'm talking about is toughness. Toughness is taking responsibility. Toughness is being honest when other people are not. And toughness is doing your job when you don't feel like it. And I want to know, if I'm going to go to work with you, I'm going to do those 3 things with you and for you. I want to know if you're going to do those things. And if you can't do them, that's okay. I love you. We'll be buddies and everything, but we're not going to work together. You're not going to be on our team. You understand? Those are the things you have to have.
That's brilliant, Coach. Simon, you've got a question?
Yeah, Coach. So we met almost exactly a year ago at Georgia Tech practice, which was amazing.
We did. Yeah.
Is there anything that the current staff are doing that you really like?
Yeah, there is. They've been through the craziest, the most bizarre, in many ways, the most difficult scenario I've ever seen in our sport in college. And they've, with the leadership of Jeff Collins, they have done nothing but stay positive with those young men. And if these young men don't learn anything else other than that they're going to get a degree from Georgia Tech, because you're not going to stay at Tech unless you're going to class and earning a degree. You're going home. So the ones that stay, and most of them are staying, they're going to get a diploma, but they're going to get an education in how to stay positive through nightmare times, because that's what Jeff Collins does. And I really, really admire that. I hope that if I had gone through a lot of the crap he's been through, I hope and pray that I could be half as positive as he has been. That's what I like the most.
Thank you.
We've got another comment come in, and then Mike, I think it's over to you after this, but I'll fire this comment in. It's from Chris Peel, and we've had, whilst at Green Bay, how much time and focus was on the sweep as part of the philosophy, and what did that entail in practice?
Wow. Somebody's been doing their homework. There was something called the College All-Star Game. back when I played, they took the college all-stars from all over America and they played the previous year's NFL champions. There was no Super Bowl. So I played on the college all-star team in Chicago against the Cleveland Browns. And yes, indeed, the Browns had won the championship the year before. Honestly, they did. They still had Jimmy Brown. They still had Jimmy Brown. They still had Jimmy Brown. Now, remember that. So we had played against the Browns, gave them a good game, almost beat them. And I reported to the Packers the next day. Even that became an interesting story. We don't have time for it here. The day after that, there was a knock at my door about 7 in the morning. It was a Sunday morning. And I thought it was some rookie messing with me. Now, I almost shouted something obscene. But I changed my mind. I went and opened the door, and it was Vince Lombardi. I almost passed out. God. He had a yellow legal pad and a ballpoint pen. And we sat down, and he drew up the entire Green Bay Packer offense. And I would give anything if I had that yellow legal pad. I don't know what I did with it. But the first thing he drew was that Packer sweep. He said, this is the play. And here's how he said it. Here's the play that we're going to execute. They're going to have to try to stop it. They won't stop it, but they're going to work and work and work to try to stop it. And when they try to stop this, then we got something else for them. And then that was, of course, the rest of the offense. So the question was, I thought, really well thought out, because it also asked, well, what did that mean in practice? If we ran that sweep once in practice, we might run it 450 times, over and over and over. You don't win games with systems, he said. You win games with execution. And we will out-execute everybody we play, and it starts with our sweep. You will run the sweep to perfection, or you will not play for the Green Bay Packers, period. And I can draw it up in my sleep right now. There are other offenses that we have run at different places. I can't remember any of it, but I remember the Packer offense, because and Lombardi actually was a physics teacher. That's what he was. And he was a great teacher. What does a great teacher do? A great teacher leaves you with something that you never forget. And by golly, I had a great privilege. I had a special session with the master.
Fantastic.
It's fantastic. I think, yeah, if we had a chalkboard, I'd definitely get you to draw you up just to test you on the back of sleep.
Well, I can draw it. I can draw it. There are a lot of other plays I can't draw, but I can draw that.
I've just dropped a comment there, so if anyone wants to check out a little video about the Packer Suite, feel free to check that out. So it was one of the ones I watched before the show, just to scrub up a little bit. So a great comment came in here from Carl. So we touched on basically how it's changed in the past, for example. But what I think Carl's asking here, what do you see as changing again over the next decade and the decade after that?
Wow, I don't know. There are a lot of people that are afraid. And when I say a lot of people now, I'm talking about football people that are afraid that it's going to turn into flag football or the equivalent of flag football. And I got to say, some of the tackling in the secondaries now, it looks like flag football. It does, and I'm embarrassed for the guys. I mean, that's just not acceptable. You can't do that. You got to go up there and stick your shoulder pad. Don't stick your top of your head in there. And that's, again, I can't say it enough. That's how the catastrophic injury occurs. The compression of the neck and the shattering of the spinal column. The brain damage and all that, I think that's a crapshoot. I think that's the luck of the draw. I got hit in the head as many times as Nick Bonaconte. Nick is dead and gone. I got hit in the head as many times as Marty Schottenheimer. Marty's gone. They're twice as smart as me. They're wonderful human beings. Why do we lose those guys and not Bill Curry? That haunts me. I don't know. That's something that the scientists are still trying to deduce. But we're going to keep changing to protect that brain. So whatever changes you see that are sincerely motivated, and most of them are, they're going to be to protect the spinal column and this thing up here so that not so many of us pass away prematurely or lose our bearings. It's just heartbreaking. I think that will change. I think the rules will continue to change toward the offenses. I mean, we used to have 7 to 6 games between two really good football teams, and people thought that was fun to watch. There aren't any more of those.
I tell you what, that's one of the things you'll notice, actually, Bill. For some reason, the British audience still love those 7 to 6 games. I don't know what it is. Like, it's like infamous with British American football. Like watching the NFL, I would much rather see like a 13-7 Ravens like defense against like a Panthers defense than anything. Like that's for me, that's football. I don't know what it is. Maybe we're behind the times and we're not interested in all this.
You mentioned Panthers, so that's not football. But carry on, anyways, mate. You know what you're saying.
I'd love to come see. Of course, a lot of the high school football here is still basic and still line up with 2 backs and 2 tight ends and run the ball. So. I'm probably thinking too much of the high-profile college and the NFL teams, and not enough about the kids. My 2 oldest grandsons are out of college now. They were both captains of their high school teams, and now our 13-year-old is playing football for the first time. And I was just sure he was going to be a quarterback, and dadgum, they put him at center too. Just the other day. I can't believe it.
Coach, if you wanted to come play some 5v5 football in the UK, I know a team that's looking. So,
I suppose it's a great point in terms of, like you said, the game is slightly different over here, and we do get people watching and joining in who are new to the game. So, what would be Coach Bill Curry's like top tip for a new coach or player? Getting into the sport? We'll do player and then coach. What's your key like kind of thing that you would want people to take away today from a player's perspective and then from a coach's perspective?
Be a player's coach. Understand each individual. Care about what happens to him or her. There are females playing football in the U.S. now. Not many, just a few, but those are human beings. Those are somebody's children, and we haven't always been as respectful of that as we should be. And then I include myself in that. Be sensitive. I don't mean pity pat stuff. I mean keep the priorities right. Understand that the language you use is going to be repeated by your players. The respect that you show for other people, whether it's minorities or women or people from a different country or people with different political views, the way you treat other people is the way they're going to act. That's a promise. So remember those things and understand that to a lot of these young people, you will have been the most important person in their lives.
What we're going to do, Coach, is we're going to pull up another comment here quickly. So we've got one from John. But before I even pull it up, I will going to say after what you just said there, Coach, I will remind everyone, today is International Women's Day. So if you just want, tag a female Britballer in the comments now, and we'll show some love in the comment section. So we've got John Wise with a question, Coach. How did Coach Schuler get you and the team to recover from Super Bowl III loss to bounce back and become champions 2 seasons later?
Well, actually, Coach Shula left. It was I'll go. I'll go to my grave regretting that because I love him. I'm so indebted to him, and I felt like we let him down. We were 15-1. Think about that. We had lost one game during the season, and that was to Cleveland. And we had just beaten them in the NFL title game, 34-0. And we go down to Miami and commit a bunch of turnovers. And yes, the Jets played well, and yes, they deserved to win. And I don't take anything away from them. But I don't think Shula and Carol Rosenblum, our owner, I don't think that relationship was ever repaired. And after the '69 season, which was the next year, Don went to Miami, and Don McCafferty took over, and we won the Super Bowl V championship under Don McCafferty, not Don Shula. I still feel bad about that. We just had to fight back, and then we got back in the Super Bowl and still didn't play well. Not offensively, we still didn't play well, but our defense won the game for us.
It's fantastic, Coach. Thank you. We've got a question here coming, which, you know what it is? I'm dying to ask this question because
it's brilliant.
I think a few of us are going to need to know this answer, if I'm honest. Huge privilege to have you on the show, Coach. What's the secret of combining a career and football in an almost 60-year marriage? There's lots of us that are going to need this answer desperately, Coach.
Yeah, I've got my pen and paper out, and I'm going to ask my missus to.
I was just about to ask, do you have pencil and paper? Okay, memorize this. Are you listening? I'm sorry, dear. Yes, dear. I'll wash the dishes, dear. When I introduce Carolyn now, and this is the truth. I've been in love with this woman for 65 years. I met her in the 5th grade. I knew when I was 12 years old I was going to marry her, and I can prove it. I've got a letter that I wrote to her, and which she did not answer when we were 12 years old. I married her when we were 20, but I've been in love with this woman for 65 years. She's been in love with me for almost 5 years now. Because I started doing the dishes, and I'm not blowing smoke. You start washing the dishes, you will be a hero. Don't argue about anything. Do not defend yourself. Just say, you're right, dear. Damn it, I blew it again. Dead. How can I make that up? You'll do fine.
I'll tell you what, the funny thing is, the reason I was late to the show today, Coach, is because I was doing the dishes. So I think I'm already winning when it comes to that. I didn't want to admit it, but that would have been perfect had I ever admitted it pre-show.
Good for you.
I've made that note. I've made those notes. I think I did. I think you had a good question.
Yeah, so I got
a bunch of redneck buddies, and they say, hey, you know, Carolyn's one of these women livers. I say, you're dead gum right she is. She's written books about it. She actually thinks women ought to have the vote because they don't realize the women have had the vote for a while. Curry, you need to talk to her. You need to give her a good talking to. I said, I tell you what, I'll sit her down and give her a good talking to. I'll get her straightened out. As soon as I finish these dishes, I'll get right on that.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
I mean, I don't know what to say now. Gone. Oh, so, Coach, another question that I'm dying to ask is, what is it like to win a Super Bowl? Like, what is that actual feeling of winning a Super Bowl?
I saw that question, and it's just crazy. I mean, it's you're so exhausted because you've just played 25 football games in a row. If you count exhibition season, 24, 25 games in a row. And on the really good teams that we played on, we played most of the exhibition games. A lot of teams sit out the veterans, but Coach Shula thought we should play, and we agreed. You're so incredibly exhausted and so grateful that there's a euphoria. It's like you've taken some sort of exotic drug, although you haven't. There's no drugs involved. It feels like nothing else that I've ever experienced. And I wish that it were authentic, because it goes away in about 2 days. Because then people start asking you, why did you turn the ball over so many times? And why did you win the 1 year before last? How much did you guys get paid to throw the jet game? And why did Lombardi get rid of you after Super Bowl I? I mean, you're right back to reality. But for a couple of days, it's a narcotic. It really is. That's
Awesome.
how it feels.
Awesome.
Pete.
Always me. So, Coach, you've written a book called 10 Men You Meet in the Huddle. Now, I've ordered this book. It has not arrived. I would love to know, who are the types of people you would like to meet in a huddle?
Who you're getting ready to meet when it does arrive?
Well, I want to know give me a spoiler for your book. Who are the types of players that I as a coach want in my huddle?
Well, you're going to meet the coaches that I described. You're going to meet Will Davis, the great defensive end, defensive captain of the Packers, who took me under his wing. I thought he was probably going to run me off because I was a white boy from College Park, Georgia, never been in a huddle with an African-American person, never in my life, except for that All-Star game. That's not what he did. He changed my life. Much of what I talked about today came straight from Willie. Willie was the first person to speak to my Georgia State team when we got our new facility. I was so thankful I found out that I could get him here. You're going to meet Lombardi, of course, and Shula and Coach Dodd. You're going to know a lot about them. At the end of the book, you're going to read about my father. You're going to read about Ray Nitschke. You're going to read about John Mackey, greatest tight end of all time, and I think the greatest NFL Players Association president that we ever had, who talked me into being the NFL Players Association president, which I did not want to do, but I couldn't turn him down. He died of dementia, 56 years old. So the dearest, finest people I've known are many of them are in that book. Now, I didn't have room for all of them, but I got a bunch of them.
Fantastic.
You'll get to meet them.
I was going to say, plus that book was written after you met us as well, so we understand that that's why we're not in it. That must be the only reason.
Yeah, that's the only reason you're not in there.
Someone clip that bit.
Yeah, perfect. Simon, I think you had a question.
Yeah, Coach, there was a story that you wrote something on a napkin for Coach Dabo Sweeney. Did you ever sort of reveal what you wrote on that napkin?
Yeah. Dabo was a walk-on player for us at Alabama. And he was, if you watch him on the sideline or listen to him after games, what you see is exactly what you get. I mean, that's just pure. He's just Dabo. He's just a poor kid from the wrong side of the tracks in Birmingham, Alabama, who came up hard and has turned out to be one of the greatest coaches of all time. But when he got the job, he was the interim coach. and they had just fired Tommy Bowden and made Dabo the interim coach, and he had been the I think he was the wide receivers coach, and they had elevated him briefly, and there was a luncheon in Greenville, South Carolina, a touchdown club, and I was just starting the Georgia State program, and both of us were invited, and so we sat together, and he leaned over to me. He said, "What do I do now?" I said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you 3 things. Number one, for the first time in your life, you're going to earn some money." He never had 2 nickels. We found out his mom was living in the dorm at Alabama because they'd been put out of their house.
Jesus.
And you're talking about poor, that's poor. So you're going to earn a lot of money, even if you only do this for a brief time. Find somebody that's already done a great job of earning money, not quickly, but a long-term resource to do the kind of job that you're going to need, and then hope that you get to stay long enough that you can assure your children's college education and your future, and all of which obviously has happened. And then the second thing I wrote was, I believe, make them all graduate, something like that. But the most important thing was the third one, which was be Dabo.
Right.
Fantastic.
Love that. Absolutely love that. The hidden napkin, as we'll call it.
Well, I went up to visit with him. He wanted to show me the new facility, and it looks like the Taj Mahal. It really does. It's just incredible. And then he said, "Come here, I want to show you something." He took me back behind his desk, and back there, leaned up against the phone, was that little card. So he still has it.
Oh, brilliant.
Brilliant.
Well, if you want, Coach, you can pass on our email and tell them to come on this show if you want and give us a talk.
You don't have long enough.
We'll make the time. Don't you worry about that, Coach.
Dabo talks for hours.
So do I. It's fine.
Having my missus for as long as I've had, as you'll know, Coach, I've got really good at listening, so it's fine. Don't worry about it. One of the questions I did have was, I've completely forgot. Actually, Pete, you go to your question. I think mine's
Coach. So, one of the things in your playing career and also maybe in your football career, you've had to overcome a lot of adversity, whether or not you were the skinny player or or when you've had an injury. So do you have a message? Because in Britball, all of our players and all of our coaches are facing adversity every day. So do you have a message about overcoming adversity, I guess?
Yeah. Be thankful. Be grateful. I don't think God imposes adversity on us. I think we almost look for it, or we almost stoke it up. But when it comes, we've got 2 choices. I've already mentioned this once. This is easy to remember. This comes from a guy named Jim Rohn, R-O-H-N. There are 2 pains in life: the pain of discipline, the pain of regret. And when you come to a moment, a turn in the road, where it just seems so hard and so brutal, you don't know if you can do it. You suck it up, and you choose the pain of discipline. Let's say the 4th quarter of a football game, when they blow that horn, and there's a TV break, and there's 1 minute and 20 seconds on the clock with 1 timeout, and you're behind by 4 points, and you're playing in your 23rd football game in a row. And it's 102 degrees. You've lost 12 pounds to dehydration. And Joe Green is beating you to death. I'll tell you what goes through your mind. It is not, I got to make this block. I want that Super Bowl ring. or I want that paycheck, or I want that new contract. Here's what's going through your mind. I'm quitting. I can't do this. I can't do this. The same thing that went through my mind when I was a short, fat, lazy 12-year-old. Same thing. So if it went through my mind then and it's going through my mind later, what is it that prevents that quitting from happening? When you think about quitting, the still small voice deep in your guts, because you've been there so many times, it says to you, you're not quitting. Don't you dare. You suck it up. You move your feet. You keep your pads square. You bend your knees. I don't care how bad it hurt. You get in front of Joe Green. You hold him off. You give Unitas a chance to throw that football. You're still wondering, can I do it? Can I do it? Do I have the motivation? And then you look at that poor son of a gun next to you in the huddle. You know, because you've been there together so many times. You know what he's going to do. You know he's just as beat up as you are. He's just as tired as you are, but he's going to lay it on the line. And now you've got your motivation because you cannot let him down.
Fantastic.
That's what you get in adversity. So at the end of that drive, whether you win or lose, you're the only one that knows that you laid it all on the line today. And maybe on this day, we were the best we could be. And maybe on this day, we were the best in the world once in a great while. And there's nothing like that. So, you see, the pain of discipline usually doesn't last long, a minute and 14 seconds. But if you lay down, if you intentionally olay that block, let him run by you because you're just too tired and you just don't care enough, that regret lasts the rest of your life. And we all got some of those, don't we?
I mean, jeepers. Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask another follow-up question, but I don't think it's worth actually following anything up with that. I think that'll, we'll definitely, Sean, if you're watching, clip that. Get that clipped up, and that's our latest video. I think you've said it all, Coach. It's been absolutely unreal having you on. Just hearing some of the names you talk about, some of the stories, you and yourself, it's just been, phenomenal. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on. And I know I've learned, loads just watching you and listening and hearing. So, I can't thank you enough for coming on. And, anytime you want to come on and talk about Lombardi and Shula, and you've got a free Monday and a free Monday at 2:00 free, you just drop us a message and you're more than welcome anytime.
Well, thank you. It's been wonderful to be with you. This is a really unusual format, and you got a wonderful bunch of guys. I enjoyed each one of you very much. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll let you go and let you get back to your wife now and get those dishes done. You're laughing, but I've got our dishwasher's broken, and I've got a sink full in there. That's the truth. I swear. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Coach. Thank you very much. Cheers, Coach. Fantastic. Well, I suppose there's only a certain amount of time. I think after that, chaps, I think this will be the last show we ever do because I'm retiring. I think you just know when you've made it in life. And for me, sitting there listening to somebody, like, not even talk about themselves, but talk about Shula, Lombardi. That's it. That I'm done. So it's been a pleasure knowing you all.
Mike, I'm sitting here thinking, like, am I the only one that's getting really jacked up listening?
I was honestly, I've got tingles and
everybody's saying the same thing.
No, I'm off. The reason I want to go now is because I'm out to go and just run through walls. I think I've got a season to play for. I'm sorry for if my coaches are watching, but I now play for Coach Curry. So I think, and the comments. Go on.
I was going to say, Mike, we should probably say thank you to Simon because
Simon, thanks very much.
Wonderful contacts. We would not.
What a hook up!
Oh man!
Thank you for setting it up. great production, and it's just amazing to meet with him again.
I can see why.
Said again.
Again, I know. He keeps dropping it, doesn't he?
So I'm just looking for something at the bottom of Simon's screen. That name drop there. I'm just like, I can't seem to see it.
That was unbelievable. So I'm in shock. Like that was.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
I think that might be one of the only shows I definitely watch. I don't often watch our shows back, but I'll be watching that one back just
I'll watch it.
Before each game. I think I'm just going to get that last clip about adversity. And Joe watching there. Joe, Nick, don't worry, I won't be missing any blocks for you next year because of that, I can guarantee.
Just be run over slowly.
I know, just been run over slowly, yeah. I found a new purpose in life. No, but it's been really good to have you both on, and again, partnering with BAFCA. Simon, if you've got any other little diamonds in the rough who you think could come and talk to us, you're more than welcome to do so. And I'm hoping, and judging by the amount of comments coming through here, and you can see them, it's not often we get as many positive comments coming through. We do get nice ones coming through, but it just shows the impact he's had on people watching. Yeah. So if you feel like a friend of yours might benefit from that, just give him a tag. Listen, more people will see this better.
Honestly, mate, right? I don't even care what people are watching saying now. I am covered in goosebumps. Like, I'm honestly, my mind is gone. Like, I forgot there was people watching at one point. Like, I was like, there's actually people. I was like, he's talking to me. That's all. I forgot you three were here. I was like, he's only talking to me. I was like, me and him have got this now. I was like,
I've got his pants on in the background, just running through walls.
Mate, I've just built this wall I just built last week. It's coming down tonight. I'm gonna go straight through that later.
But guys, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone watching, Pete, Simon, thank you very much. Simon, hopefully it won't be the last, and Pete, unfortunately, it won't be the last. So we'll catch you up both soon, and I think we're probably back again with someone in 2 weeks. So yeah, perfect. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Awesome, guys. Great job.
Thanks very much for joining us. Thank you very much, guys.